This is your host, James Jordan.
And Michael Wallace.
Coming at you for another edition of the Wide World of Motorsports podcast. Coming at you for the week of July 24th, 2022. And we're here for Season 5, Episode 22.
Wow,
and
yeah, 22.
We are on many different streaming platforms or frequency modulations, depending where you're at right now, which is good for us, good for you, good for the tracks.
I like that.
We're up on CKMS 102.7 Radio Waterloo in the region of Waterloo, of course, hence Waterloo. CFMH 107.3 Local FM in St. John, New Brunswick on Saturdays at 1 p.m. And the Performance Motorsports Network on your smart device. Just gotta, if you have a smart device, just gotta open it up, check it out. And it's, if you don't, it's on the web. Just gotta go to the old Google. Hey, Wallace, the old Google.
The Google. The Googs. Are we Googleites because we use it?
Yes, because we are on the Google. The
or
Google
because
Podcasts.
We're on it, we're Googleites.
Google Podcasts, which
Never
is
used that one.
well, yeah. There's because there's so many. It's like, do you use each one? We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. There's a few others in there, like I think like Pocket Casts or like. There's a couple other random ones in there. So yeah, I think you can listen to us through there. Yeah. So, and yeah, there's also a way you can send us a message, a recorded audio message. We can put you up on the show. You just got to send it. If you're on one of those podcast streaming services, it's in the description below. We'd love to hear from you, which would be so cool to hear from the fans. I would actually really that would be really awesome if we could get someone out there to to kind of just come on real quick, give us a little line, just a quick little tidbit of love or whatever whatever it may be. And of course, hey man, Instagram doing the reels.
Yeah.
The reels with the Z, right? A Z, depending where you're at.
I think it's with an S, but we'll go with that. Yeah, reels, no, it's going good. I don't know. That's just
on the Instagram at the WWOMS, and luckily I think we're the same. We're like at the WWOMS all around Facebook, Twitter, and eventually on YouTube. Once we get to a certain amount of subscribers, you're allowed to have your own username. So hopefully, once we get to that point, and yeah, YouTube on the can't forget YouTube while we're talking about it. A lot of good stuff. We've had so much fun doing iRacing streams on there as well. And also the video versions of the podcast is up there as well. So that's another good place to check it out. Make sure you subscribe and like there. And of course, if you already haven't, though, on our website, the Wide World of Motorsports podcast.wordpress.com, you can check out past and future stuff, and especially the part 1 to the Jeff Braun interview that you had there mid-July.
Yeah, it was a great. Part 1 was fantastic. Jeff was quite open and honest about some of the decisions IMSA was making with the prototypes, and open and honest with what they were allowed to do. I think you get to see Jeff, that he's not just a sports car engineer, that he's just a racing guy, right? He's done a lot of stuff across the board, a full spectrum of different styles of racing, and you really see Jeff wanting to, he likes a challenge. He likes to really compete against another engineer on making the cars go faster. You know, he thinks he kind of, I feel he's got that racing mentality that you and I have a little bit of what we like to see. They like to see that on race, sorry, on track battling that wins
Right.
races, and not bank accounts winning races. So I saw a lot of analogies or comparisons, I should say, that I made myself towards short track racing and what he was doing with the LMP3 car, which I thought was really cool. Some of the same principles apply, and which really kind of is cool to see that two different styles of racing can have such a similar
Totally.
lap over
And you could hear
crossover.
it in the you know, you guys sounded so comfortable and it sounded so awesome. And it was, there
Yeah,
was
thank
so
you.
much, it was so good. Hey, you asked some good questions there, and you guys were on a roll, and it was on so much of a roll that there was enough for a part two, a second episode. And so we're going to be able
Hmm.
to continue off with what where we were at with Jeff in part
Yep.
one, and here in part two, what are some things we can expect to hear?
Just what he thinks, the future of the series and sports car racing in general, what kind of where it's going, what he likes. We talk a little bit about different changes and how fans react and stuff like that. So more racing talk, a little less technical, and more, I don't know, the landscape of
Right.
where motorsports are going.
Yeah, and it, to be able to have him on the show and everything like that, and it was so good. It was so awesome, and for all the listeners out there through the FM world and through the Spotify world, um, and if you love racing, this is a good one. So be sure to stay tuned, and we're after following part two here. We're gonna have some more words, and we'll head on out uh, for the episode. But just stay tuned here, folks, to part two with Jeff Braun and Michael Wallace here.
Big benefit. But when I get, in 2018 and 19, I had Colin, Romain Dumas, and Loic Duval all together.
Yeah.
And all three, I would classify three world-class sports car drivers.
Yep.
And they all wanted something slightly different, but they're pro enough to get together and go, okay, well, Loic wants this and Colin wants this. And Romain's like, I kind of like this. And everybody goes, well, we can all put up with this. And it'll be slightly not perfect for each one of us, but better overall for all of us.
Right. Well, that's the whole
And
team sport behind it, right? People always think racing as an individual, but there is, especially in recent years, we now see more of the team aspect through social media and whatnot. So yeah, that's
right,
really cool.
right. But in a single driver car, you can
Right.
optimize it perfectly for that driver. So I think, to answer your question, to me, it's always been, you make that car do what the driver expects
Interesting.
it to do, and he'll get the most out of it. And that's what I'm trying to do, is give him the tool that he can extract the most out of.
Well, it's that confidence that, if you make him think he's Superman and make him believe he's Superman, he's going to be Superman, and he's going to do the driver, he or she, sorry, I don't mean to be that way, is going to be that way, for you. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I like how you put that, because it kind of, I would have always thought it was kind of going different. So what I like about that part of it is that the one thing I get from all the different types of prototype racing you've been in and oval racing you've been in is that it's all about a balance, right? You work on the front's good, you work on the back's good. I mean, it's the same thing with the driver. You work with the driver. He's obviously drivers improve on their laps because they realize I can, like in oval racing, I can go a little bit further, I can trail break in a little bit deeper, or I can roll center a little bit more, or whatever the case may be, and then you can go, well, I can give you a little more stagger, help you with your roll center, or whatnot.
Yep.
And it's all about a balance, working back and forth and just fine tuning and aiming for that perfection that is never attainable.
Right, exactly. And that's what's fun about it, right? Because if you could figure it out, or if you could just put the numbers in a spreadsheet and get an answer for your setup, that wouldn't be any fun. And I think some people, you kind of lightly touched on a point there. Some people get, and I see this in semi-professional or amateur racing, where some people get too caught up in finding the magic setup. Oftentimes, you're better off just, if it's close and it's not trying to kill you, go drive it. Go spend more laps. Don't spend laps in the pits changing stuff. Spend laps driving it. Figure it out.
Right.
Figure out what you need to do. You're on an oval. Do you need to enter higher or come in lower, or if it's going to handle, if it's got a big push in the middle, what can I do with my driving to get rid of that push? Maybe driving back to the pits and trying to change the stagger isn't the answer. Maybe what you're doing with the steering wheel and the gas and the brake and your lines is the answer. And there's a lot of times in road racing where we'll just go, no, just some more laps, more laps. Go figure it out. And then they'll come back and go, I know what it is. It's really not, we're not going to fix that with the setup. I just got to do this with the way I'm driving it.
Right.
And so I think a lot of people would gain by just, maybe trying to drive the car a little bit more and don't worry about that magic setup quite as much. Now, if you're way out to lunch, yeah, you got to get, you got to get close. But I see a lot of guys, get caught up in that. And of course, depending on who you are, everybody likes an excuse, right? If they can't outdrive the guy, they like to blame their setup or whatever. So I get that too, but it's it's a fun balance, and it's fun working with it. It's a lot of engineers don't like sports car racing because they have to compromise for 2 drivers or 3 drivers, or in the long races 4 drivers. But I kind of enjoy it.
That's good, and I'm glad you do, because I enjoy watching you on the pit box. You were nice enough to allow me to invade the space and take some pictures of you and Colin, of course, and I got a few of John. I love when you guys roll into CTMP. We didn't see you for 2 years, and I walked around that place with a smile all weekend.
Yeah.
People, the unfortunate thing is I heard a lot of people complain that the car counts were low, and especially with the historics, they're supposed to be
those were cool,
but they were amazing. The sound was,
I love watching. Yeah.
Yeah,
I got cool. The Formula One cars from those days, man, it was like, I thought that was awesome.
Time machine. I got to see some on social media because they went back to they were at Watkins Glen this weekend, and they had a sports car endurance. So they had, if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw the Flexbox Core LMPC car. They had the old
Collins. Yeah, Collins driven that a couple times, like at the what do they call it? It's the 24-hour race at Daytona, the historic 24 or whatever.
Yeah. That's so cool. It's great. I love watching Colin drive too, because he is unbelievable. And you're right, CTMP just seems to fit him. I know. Looking at the clock here, I know your time is precious, so
No, I'm here as long as you want to talk. We're talking racing. I mean, it's hard to stop, right?
It is hard to stop, especially. I mean, I've been sitting here with a grin the whole time because listening to the stories that you have. Maybe we'll go a little bit longer, and I'll ask you a handful, two or three more questions if you don't mind. I want to
Fire away.
hear about your favorite car that you ever got to engineer, work on. It doesn't have to be a winning. The one that you felt you just enjoyed the most working on.
I mean, the one that comes right to mind is that Orica 07 that we ran in 18, that
Right.
LMP2 car.
Yeah.
As an engineer, you have kind of these, I don't know, rules of thumb or ideas of what each chain should do to the car. You know, it's like your toolbox that you've built up.
Right.
Okay, if the car's understeering, I know I can do A, B, C, and D, and I know what each one of them will do and how much the effect will be. And often cars don't respond to that the way you would expect because they have some kind of weird geometry or they have some kind of weird aerodynamics that was designed into it, or not on purpose, but it's just the way it was. And very few cars do everything the way you expect. That Orica was one that did that. I mean, it was just straightforward. Apply your engineering thoughts the way you think things should work, and it worked that way. You know, 2 millimeters of rear ride height worked like you would expect it. A quarter degree more or less camber did what you thought it would do. 100 pounds of spring did what you thought it would do. There's no weirdnesses to it. I think people might call that it had a big setup envelope. You know, you didn't have to have the setup perfect for it to be good. You could be a little this way or a little that way and nudge it a little understeer, a little oversteer. Just did all the things you wanted correctly. So that's the one that comes to first mind. I'll back up a little bit to the next one, was the Ferrari 333 SP.
Oh, yeah.
So I ran that car for 5 years at Team Scandia. We took it to Le Mans a couple of years. We won Sebring with it twice. We won the championship with it in 1995. It's the championship. That car was just cool on so many levels. I mean, it had a Formula One engine in it from 1989, 5-valve, 12-cylinder, high revving, sounded awesome.
You're right.
The chassis was a Dallara. I mean, I know it was a Ferrari, but it was built by Dallara, designed by Dallara. You know, we raced against the Riley Mark IIIs with Ford engines in them, with Rob Dyson and, you know, those cars. And it was a good time in sports car racing to be in, I think. Open cockpit, fast. And that Ferrari was, it was also similar, you know. We did take it to Le Mans. We did a whole complete rebuild on it, redesign on it, built a Le Mans kit. Tony Southgate was the designer. Yep. So Tony Southgate came up with new wings and splitters and rear deck and everything to take it to Le Mans.
How did it do?
Well,
we don't want to talk about that.
let me tell you a quick story. How we were. So we
would love it.
We're the Americans, right? So we're like, we're going to Le Mans. Okay, how hard can this be? You know, I'd never been to Le Mans. Team Scandia had never been to Le Mans. This can't. You know, we're killing everybody in American sports car racing. We'll just show up in France and we got this. It's going to be great. So we went there for the test days, and back then the test days were about a month before Le Mans. So that you'd go and test. They'd shut down the streets, and you would do the normal track. And then you come back a month later for the race. Well, we shipped everything over there, and we even shipped our Kenworth tractors and trailers. We put them on a boat and we shipped them. Yeah.
Wow.
And so I remember, as a quick sidelight, we unloaded it, backed up with our trucks to the garages at Le Mans and unloading these Ferrari 333s. And we're like going to be the cool guys with the new, really cool car. and somebody comes out and says, "Hey, there's a big line of people that all want a picture." And I'm like, "Yeah, I bet there is." And they go, "No, no, no. They're all standing in front of the Kenworth tractor. They're all taking their picture with this Kenworth tractor. They've never seen anything that big before."
That's awesome.
Yeah, the car was, who cares about the
Who
car?
cares about
Look
the
at
car?
this
That
trailer and tractor.
that's
Yeah.
hilarious.
So anyway,
Yeah, because it
we
would have
go to
been
the
it would have been old school, right? It would have been flat front, like it wouldn't have been swept big. It wouldn't have been a cab over. It would have
right, with
been
the big pipes. and-
oh my yeah, that would have just
exactly.
blown them away. That's
We had to
awesome.
get special permits to drive them from Le Havre down to Le Mans. And anyway,
That's awesome.
but the so that was the year of the Porsche GT1, I think they called it. It was looked like a 911, but it was a silhouette kind of car.
Oh yeah, yeah. It had the mobile one
yep,
motif,
Yep.
and yeah, I know the car. Yep.
exactly. So that was the first year of that car. And so we show up for the test days, and what do we know? We're going fast, and we're the fastest cars, and we're like, wow, these Porsche, they don't have anything. We're the guys. And so, unbeknownst to us, in the meantime, Porsche was sandbagging. I mean, they know what they're doing, right? They've done this a time or two.
Yeah.
They're sandbagging. They're complaining, "Oh, we're not fast enough. We don't have enough gas. We need a bigger gas tank. We need this. We need that." And they looked at the times and they're like, "Yeah, those Ferraris are way fast. Okay, we'll give you that stuff." So we show up for the race. I can't remember. Maybe we were on the pole or whatever, but we were super fast, even for the race weekend.
Right.
But we show up. The race starts, and I'm doing my strategy stuff. And the race starts, and we go around, and I'm making this number up, but I think you could do like 10 laps on a tank of gas. And
Seems
so
like
we
that's
were
always been the number. We're in at about 10, 11.
kind of, yeah. So we go and we do our 10 laps, and we come in the pits, and we fuel and tires, and you have to do them separate. Fuel, we put tires on it. We go back out, and I'm kind of watching the Porsche, and it goes past. Well, wow, they're going to do 11 laps, and it goes past again. I'm like, uh-oh, they're going to do 12 laps. It goes past again. Finally, on lap 14, they come into the pits, and they don't change tires.
The double stint.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, and this is like hour one into the race of 20. And I start doing some calculations, like they're going to go 4 laps longer. So that means that they're going to do however many less pit stops. And they're going to save 30 seconds on every pit stop because they're changing every other pit stop. And like, we're screwed. We can't win.
Yeah.
So I went to our team owner and I said, we're not going to win this race. And he goes, "What do you mean? We got 23 hours to go." I said, "No, here, look at the math. We are not winning this race." And I realized how smart Porsche was and how smart the factory was and how dumb we were. And
Right.
they must have just been laughing their butts off from the time we showed up. So good lesson. I got schooled in that one. And, those Porsche people, they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. It must have just been funny for them to watch us just
struggle.
not even have a clue. Right. We were totally out to lunch.
That's awesome.
Fast, though. Fast. On the
Yeah.
lap. We could go pretty quick. It ended, we destroyed one car in the Dunlop, under the Dunlop Bridge. Eric Batchelor was driving it, and the thing snapped on him. We're not even sure to this day what happened. Something probably broke. Eric's a really good driver, and something happened, and the car broke in half. I mean, it was a big accident.
Wow.
And the other car with, I can't remember what happened to the other car. Got stuck in the gravel once. Anyway, Porsche did not have to worry.
Yeah.
They ended up winning the race. So that was a fun car.
Okay. Yeah, those are both. I mean, the Ferrari's a classic. I know the Ferrari. My father-in-law has the Lego model of that Ferrari when it came back
Cool.
way in the day.
Yeah.
So my second question, the second to last question.
Yeah. Okay.
What is your biggest worry for IMSA going forward in the next 5 years?
Wow, that's good. Another really good question.
Could be from a technical, like, where do you see their biggest?
I'll say two things that I think they're going to.
Without getting you in trouble, not that they would listen to this podcast.
Right? No. Those guys are. I've known those guys forever and ever, and they're. I have a really good relationship with those guys. John Doonan's the president of IMSA right now, and I worked for John Doonan at Mazda with
That's right.
Speed Solar. So John and I have a good relationship. All the technical people there, Simon Hodgson and Jeff Carter and Matt Kurdock, who has the worst job in racing. Matt Kurdock is in charge of balancing the LMDH GTP cars, balancing their performance amongst themselves. So getting the Porsche to be competitive with the Cadillac, to be competitive with the Acura, and ultimately the Lamborghini. He has to make all that work. And he has to fit it in with LMP2 performance and LMP3 performance and make that all work so it's not a complete mess.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Is going to be really hard. That's going to be really hard. I think if any of the people listening have watched any of the WEC racing with the hypercars and the LMP2s and balancing that and how difficult that's been.
Yes.
This, I think, is a bigger task because you have more manufacturers. You have much more varied tracks. You're going to try to balance them at Mid-Ohio and Daytona. That's a different answer.
Yeah, and I understand BOP and I agree with it. I think we would agree with the idea of it, I guess, more so than how it actually happens. But it is unfortunate to see that. Yeah, how do you go to those two types of tracks, which are, not even on the same planet for what they require?
Yep.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one.
That's gonna be tough. So I'm, you asked me what my worry is. It's not my worry that they get it wrong. It's just the difficulty in that task is going to be very hard to get right. And I hope that the fans stick with it when their car isn't on the right side of that early on.
Yeah.
They'll get it right. Look at the example would be GT racing, right? GT3 racing, the balance of performance of GT3 racing is pretty incredibly good. You can take a 4-door Lexus sedan and balance it with a 488 Ferrari.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
Yeah.
So, but that didn't happen day one either.
No, it took some time.
So I think the LMDH GTP thing is going to go through that same thing. That's going to be a little bit of a struggle. And then the other thing I see, and maybe it's just because I'm an old guy and I've seen this a number of times, is the whole, it's been in sports car racing forever. The factories come in and you see a lot of factories involved and it's awesome. You're seeing Porsche racing against Cadillac, racing against Acura and Lamborghini, and maybe, who knows, maybe Toyota, and maybe, you see all these, and it's like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
And then and maybe BOP saves it because they could all be competitive, and I hope it does.
Right.
But back in the day, we've seen it where after 2 years, one manufacturer goes, I can't compete, and they quit. The next year, a manufacturer goes, no, I can't compete. And suddenly you end up with one manufacturer racing against themselves, and nobody wants to watch that.
P2.
And then it's back to the privateers.
Which is unfortunate because and that wasn't a slight against P2. P2 was great to watch, but everyone had to have the Orca. You just didn't win.
Right. And I'll go back to the old days when, maybe some people listening, if not, go back and look up this era of sports car racing. But when you had the All-American Racer Gurney Toyotas versus the Lecter Motive Nissans versus the the Tom Walkinshaw Jaguars versus
Yeah.
the, Al Holbert Porsche 962s. Wow, that was fun to watch, but it didn't last very long. It wasn't
No,
long
it
before you
didn't.
had just the two Toyotas racing against each other, and then they pulled out, and then that was it. Then you were back to privateers again. And it always comes back. The backbone of sports car racing in North America has always been the privateer. And if IMSA keeps the privateer in mind, and they can do that with LMP2 and LMP3, keeping them in the game, in the big show, while the factories go have their fun, and it'll be great to watch. But they need to keep that privateer available, because the factories in history aren't there forever. But
Yeah, so and that's interesting because the whole idea of this new LMDH era GTP is
Yeah.
supposed to reinvigor or bring back what was that sports car era. You go back to the Porsche 917 when they had 25 quasi car. Well, they had like 20 quasi cars and 3 rolling chassis and 2 with an engine and 1 only ran to satisfy their quota to the governing body. But then,
Right.
962s and then 956s, that was, they just flooded the market. You saw them in Asia, you saw them in Europe, in North
Right.
America, South Africa,
Yeah.
you saw them everywhere. And I think they're reinvigorating that. The problem, or my concern for that, is that they're going to be too complicated. Because I know they're running hybrids now. LMDH is a plug and play hybrid. You buy it, you put it in. But if that doesn't work on a race weekend, and you're racing in Lime Rock, Virginia, well, not that they're going to go there, but Mid Ohio,
Right.
how do you're going to have spares, but it just doesn't. I know what they're doing with it, but you're right. It just seems like it's going to go up because when the factories are there, the privateers are up there because they're all supported by the factories. Factories teams there anyways, right? Am I correct in thinking that?
Well, I think it's going to start out with very few privateers, or what you would call a customer car.
Right.
So you're going to have teams. A good example is Core Autosport. We ran the factory Porsche GTLM cars.
Yep.
So that was a team who has the infrastructure, the shop, the trucks, the trailers, the people, providing a service to the Porsche factory. But it was the Porsche factory cars. Porsche engineers were embedded within the team. That's the way that the Cadillac program will work at Wayne Taylor and Ganassi. I mean, not Wayne Taylor, but at Ganassi.
Yes.
The Acura will have Wayne Taylor and Shank. Same way. Those teams. Acura doesn't want to own a race team, so they hire those teams to do it. But those would be factory efforts with factory support, factory engineers to support all of those systems, those complex systems that you talk about.
So what will they do in the case of, let's use Porsche and IMSA for the example. Roger Penske is the North American factory team for Porsche, and just recently announced too was that in IMSA, JDC Miller is, I don't know if they're getting 2 or if they're just getting the 1 for the Mustang sampling. Okay, in that instance, you have a Porsche hiring Penske to take care of that, and then JDC buying the car. Now, will it be Penske staff support to JDC or Porsche?
I don't know the details of that, but the way I understand it is that's more of the JDC car, and there's one going to Jota in Europe.
Yeah,
is a more of a customer program that Porsche wanted to build customer cars, not unlike. And I don't know the details. I haven't talked to John Church at JDC about exactly how this works, so I'm just guessing on this.
Yeah.
But think back to when they had the 956 and 962s.
Yeah.
There were some Porsche factory kind of efforts, right?
Yep.
But then you could just buy one. You could just buy one, and you were gonna have to race against the factory, but you knew that going in.
Right.
whatever, Bruce Levin could buy a Porsche 962 and he could race against Al Hobart in the Andile factory Porsche, but they would sell you a car and they would support it in certain ways, parts, technical stuff. They would give you information, but Penske still wants to beat those guys.
Right.
So, you're going in with your eyes open. And I don't know about Acura and Cadillac, whether they plan to build customer versions, customer cars, sell customer cars. Maybe after a year or two, they may, I don't know. But boy, these cars are expensive. They're way more expensive than a DPI car, like more than double expensive of a DPI car to run and to buy. So
now you're running into the issue of spares, the cost. Like, what does a purchase of a car get you? Does it just get you the car, or does a purchase of a car get you spares?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like when you guys you purchase the Ligier that you run. What is, you buy the car, I don't know what it is, say 150,000 US, just say. What does that come with?
Well, I can give you a better exact example. When we bought the Orica LMP2 car, we bought it brand new.
Yeah.
We paid, that car was about $600,000, I think, dollars at the time. And you got the car, no engine, because you leased the engine. Right. From Gibson.
Yeah, that's right, because it was a single engine.
Single make, yep. You got the car, no spares, a basic electronic package. So you were going to need to put another 50 grand in for the electronics, telemetry, telemetry radios, things like that. And one set of wheels. So that's, 600,000. You're going to need to put another 400,000 in to buy a spare nose, a spare wing, a spare gearbox, get the engine lease, buy 7 more sets of wheels. It's
wow.
Yeah, it's expensive. So to get an LMP2 car, you better have $1 million to get it on track and have enough spares to survive the first weekend. And
wow,
the LMDH GTP cars are just going to be more than that. I mean, I don't know, because I don't know that they're actually, the JDC car, I guess, is for sale, and somebody's gonna have to write a check to Porsche for that. But I know the hybrid system's expensive. You probably need an engineer just to manage and take care and monitor the hybrid system.
Yes, I would think.
I mean, when we ran that Nissan, we had 4 engineers, really. Myself as the race engineer. We had a data guy who was in charge of collecting the data. He was my junior engineer, basically. Then we had a systems guy who just took care of all the electrical systems on the car, the power distribution, the sensors, the data we were getting back. And then we had an engine tuner who was basically in charge of all the engine systems and maintaining and watching and monitoring them, fuel pumps and injectors and all of that. I think you're going to need at least that plus a hybrid guy. So you're looking at 5 engineers per car.
Wow.
Probably on a GTP car.
That's incredible. That's going to be a lot. I mean, the cost's just going to go up, but
yeah, that's why it's a factory programs. It's really not meant for the privateers. Privateers should be an LMP2 or LMP3, and I think my fear of it getting like the old days where manufacturers started to quit because they couldn't be competitive. The key to that will be BOP, because back in those days there was no BOP. So every week Toyota had a new wing, and every week this Jaguars had a new whatever shock absorber system or something. Right. And the cost just got so out of hand where the lowest car went, wow, okay, well, we got to spend $1 million to design all this new stuff to be competitive. It's not worth it. But if you knew that you could be competitive because the BOP would be adjusted every weekend slightly, then at least you don't have to win every weekend, but you have to, when you unload, you have to have the feeling that you could win that weekend.
Right.
If that goes away, you quit. But as long as you have that feeling that you can win and it seems somewhat fair,
Mm-hmm.
you keep trying.
Yeah. Well, that's I like how you put that, and you advocate for the good of what BOP is, right? Because it's what's going to keep the sport going. My biggest concern all the time, and it's a constant run, especially with IMSA, is that somebody's going to get bored and leave, and that leads to somebody else leaving. We saw, Ford left with the GT, right? And it's just like, oh, and then we don't have any Ferraris running, and now that we don't have GTLM, that's going to change things in the house. But you saw, when WEC, you had Audi left, and then Porsche left, and Toyota's been carrying the torch. And I always fear that we're just going to lose it. We're going to lose the sport, and I always will want the sport to keep going. I don't care what cars show up.
I'm with you. I mean, we want to see more cars, and as much as, I mean, I hate BOP racing. I hate it because whenever I've raced BOP, I've always, your mindset changes. It's like, how can I go fast but not show them that I'm fast? How can I manage the BOP the best way but still do well? That's what I love about LMP3 racing. We go out every practice, we go as fast as we can. That's it. That's as fast as we could go that practice. And if we go better the next practice session, it's because our drivers figured something out, or our setup was better, or whatever.
There's no fear of being pulled back.
Exactly. So
you can actually run flat out.
We're running flat out, and that's what we got. And you know that the guy next to you is doing the same thing. And so you don't go, well, yeah, we were faster in that practice, but those guys were holding back for BOP reasons. You never say that. But having said I hate BOP, I've been through the days when there weren't BOP, and they're short-lived.
Yeah.
You end up with Toyota racing themselves, and the Jaguars and Porsches and Nissan's gone. And that's no fun. We like to see all of that. GT3 racing. I mean, you go to an SRO race, or you go watch GTD racing in IMSA.
It's fantastic.
I mean, that's pretty great.
Yeah.
And why is it great? Because of BOP. So I'm hoping that the BOP works the same way with the GTP cars, and those factories stay in, and more, and maybe some on the sidelines look at it and go, oh, we could compete. We'll do that.
Yeah. That would be nice to pull in some automaker out of nowhere that just might come up as step up to the plate, so to speak. Maybe Hyundai will step up to the plate.
Right.
You never know.
It'll be interesting to see how the hypercars fit in too. That's a whole nother.
That's just a can of worms. And I almost would say I don't want them to come here. I know that.
Yeah.
Sebring used to be the outlier for the ALMS. That's when the cars would co-mingle, right? They never went to Daytona, never went to anywhere else. I mean, you think about even when Audi raced in North America with Champion, right? Yep. They didn't race at Daytona. They didn't race at there's some other tracks in there. I can't think right now that they didn't race at, and other tracks they did. I was surprised that they went to Lime Rock with those. Right. But it's a unique style of racing just altogether, and I don't know if I want that here, because the whole point of DPI, as I understood, was that nobody was happy with P2 being the top class. They needed manufacturers wanted some brand relevance in the sport, and they want to be the top dogs. Well, you have Porsche coming in. You have all these manufacturers that are committing to at least 3 years, I would say. I mean, usually that's the sweet number for factory teams is 3 years.
Yep.
you're really going to allow Toyota, Glickenhaus, Peugeot, Ferrari to come in and really stink up that mess? Like, you really, how's Cadillac going to feel about possibly losing the 24-hour to overall to Toyota just because they didn't want to build an LMDH or a hypercar, because we don't typically run hypercar here.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and then it goes the other way too. Then the LMDH cars go to Le Mans. How is Peugeot and Toyota going to like it if a LMDH car wins Le Mans? They're not.
See, and I don't. It's two ships trying to go the same way that keep pulling apart, right? That's just what those two classes are. That's why I liked the P2s. You would talk about, because they were you could race that anywhere. If memory serves me correct, they hit all the rules the same everywhere. It might have been gearing rules, might be a little different here or there. I think for like Le Mans to like CTMP or like a different track that we would race here. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch. We'll see how it all plays out, but yeah, I think IMSA's got some challenging times coming up, but yeah, I'm excited about it. It'll be fun to watch.
Me too.
And it'll be good to see how it plays out. And this is their chance, because now they have the weapon of BOP to keep the factories involved, where it's never been applied before at this level. The old GTP, the original GTP days, they didn't do that.
No.
And it was just it was an arms race who could spend the most money to develop the newest part for the next weekend.
Right.
And so I'm encouraged. I think it'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I am too. I'm excited to see what you guys do. I hope you guys keep racing. We keep John going. Just needle him. Spend more, John. Spend more. Keep spending money.
Spend more. He's having a great time.
Good.
We're leading the championship right now, and that never hurts in the team's enthusiasm. So, and we have good competition. I mean, LMP3, I know it doesn't get the TV time that, I think all of our LMP3 teams wish we would get.
Yeah.
But if you get a chance to watch it, there's some really good teams there. I mean, Riley Motorsports, Bill Riley and those guys.
Yeah.
If you can beat those guys, you have done something. We're proud on the occasion that we can beat those guys. And then there's some really good P3 teams that could run and have run high level. Performance Tech ran LMP2. Sean Creech could run LMP2 cars. There's some good teams. Andretti Autosport. Heck, Andretti is running in P3. So it's a highly competitive class with some really good drivers, and it's fun to watch the drivers. You have kind of Colin's 32, but I'll call him a sports car veteran, Philippe Fraga veteran, and you have some young kids like Kyle Van Berlo and Mikhail Jacobison, who are young, 22, 23-year-old blazingly fast kids. It's a pretty fun class to watch.
It is. It is fun to watch. The cars are cool. They sound amazing, which is always a good one. Yeah. And it's great. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. I thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It has been fun.
When is your next race?
So we're Road America is the next race for us. About 3 weeks, I think, Road America. And so we have two left, Road America and then Petit Le Mans, and that's it for our season. There's Lime Rock this weekend for GT cars, and then there's VIR also for GT cars. Only. But prototypes, two more races, Road America and Road Atlanta. So
that's great. Two amazing tracks. That's another great thing about IMSA is just historic tracks all the way through. Send my best to the team. Good luck on the rest of the season. And I really can't say thank you enough. I don't know how you've been so generous all the time and with this. So thank you so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, and good luck. I can't wait to come back up and see all the Canadian fans and see you again. And it was a pleasure being on. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Jeff Braun.
Hey, we're back. here on the Wide World of Motorsports podcast. You're listening to us on 107.3 local FM in St. John, 102.7 in the region of Waterloo on CKMS FM, or on the Performance Motorsports Network, or of course on your favorite streaming service. We're just listening to an awesome interview, one of our best. We're lucky enough to be able to have race strategist and great racing mind Jeff Braun on the show, and you were able to sit down with him mid-July, and we were able to you're able to pick his brain a little bit.
Yes, you know, I said in the first episode, just Jeff was a guy I heard about and listened to an interview on, and just kind of became very, very interested in his work, and kind of sought him out the next year at the racetrack just to talk to him, kind of like anyone would do a driver. And I just, every year after that, sought him out because I would have questions, and Jeff he is more than willing, as our listeners heard. He loves to talk racing, and will talk any kind of racing. It doesn't matter what it is, and he's very knowledgeable in all of it. So I would reach out to him or search for him in the paddock, and we built a relationship from there, and he was willing to come on the podcast, so that was fantastic. He's been in the paddock for a long time total. He's worked on some big programs, and you know, I hope to see him in the paddock for the future. Even if he moves on into working for IMSA in some sort of way, I think he'd make a great technical director, you know, somebody like that. So he, you know, after the conversation, we talked, and he, you know, we seemed to have a good time. Said he had a good time, and said he'd love to come back on. So, you know, maybe at the end of the season, I could reach out to Jeff and see if he'd be willing to come on and talk about how their season went, and, you know, what the future holds for the series, and you know, what other, maybe there'll be some engineering debacle in one of the other series that he can help navigate for us or help us understand.
Yeah, and we totally look forward to having him back, because I'm sure there was so much more that you could have asked him. And what were some of your favorite parts with Jeff?
I liked hearing him explain the third spring in the LMP3 car. You know, I've heard the phrase before, if you can explain something complicated easily, then that shows your true understanding of the topic. And Jeff explained that so well. I in a way, I've never understood it before. It just clicked when he talked about it. You know, that was cool. The stories of the particular one of Colin driving the Nissan DPI at CTMP and getting the rear tires to come off the racetrack going into turn 2 there, Clayton Corner. You know, like, that car was going so fast, and it was sprung so tight, and everything was just, and Colin just full commitment right over the crest of the hill. The front tires stayed on the track all the way over, but the rears just came up, and it landed and bit and just kept going around 3. You know, just thinking about that lap, and the fact that they only beat it this year by, I think, 6/10, he said, in a span of 3 or 4 years, 3 years, I think. That's a pretty big technology gap.
Oh, yeah.
Especially for a car that was never really that good to begin with, and you would have heard about that in the interviews. So
yeah,
that was a cool one. And of course, how could you not like the stories of him working with Alan Kulwicki?
Right, and it was a good. You asked some great questions. You guys were in it, and it was you could definitely tell he was having a good time. And thanks to Jeff for giving us
Yes.
some time. And not
Big
only
time.
that, you know, if anyone who has just heard part 2, part 1 will be available up on our website, www.thewideworldofmotorsportspodcast.wordpress.com, or of course we'll share it throughout all of our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at the WWOMS, in addition to it being up onto the YouTube page as well. So it'll be all over. If you missed or whatever parts you want, give it a favorite, give it a share. We'd love to hear some feedback from some of our listeners as well on our time with Jeff. And
go follow Jeff on Instagram at Mesa Vista Coffee. MESA Vista Coffee.
Give him some love on the Insta, and and you know, and give us some feedback. There's a link down in the description where you're able to give us a little bit of a voice feedback on maybe something maybe even you would like us to ask for when he can come on the show the next time, and maybe we can get some fan questions in to Jeff. And absolutely. And you know, always a good time to have some people on the show and be able to bring it out to the listeners all around the land there. And whether you're listening to us on the FM 102.7 CKMS Radio Waterloo, or 107.3 local FM in St. John, New Brunswick, or of course on your smart device on the Performance Motorsports Network. You can, we'll be there for we'll be around again in a couple of weeks. Lots of motorsports going, man. We're about midway through the summer-ish, and there's still lots of racing left, so we're gonna have as much as we can get covered right here on the Wide World of Motorsports podcast. And it's always there's always lots going on for us. You know, we're obviously looking forward to seeing our first dirt race in August, and
I cannot wait.
We're really hyping up about that. Last weekend, their first NASCAR Pinty's going there for his first ever dirt race, so that's something, you know, some stuff that we're looking forward to. And the next week, and of course, such a tight battle in the NASCAR Cup Series, with the championship being so close, with the 16, what is it at now, 16 drivers is when we're recording, so it's almost full, man, isn't it? So we're gonna see some good racing on that bubble coming up in the next couple of weeks, so we'll have it all here and on the show. I think that about wraps it up.
Anyways.
I think that about wraps it up for this edition. We'll see you all around the bend, folks.
Adios.